I love being a professor. It is a career that most people, if you ask a professor, do they enjoy their job, they would say the same, but likely for different reasons. When I'm standing in front of a classroom full of students, I come alive. And although my differences of being a professor might be different than others, here are some of the reasons why I'm a professor. I became a professor because at many points during my academic and professional career, I was overlooked. I became a professor because at many points in time during my academic and professional career, I was not only overlooked, I was not paid attention to. I became a professor because at one point in time, that was my GPA, my college GPA as a freshman. How does that happen? How do you go from not feeling like you can accomplish anything to absolutely winning at it? How do you go from having a 1.67 GPA to a point where now you are teaching classes that you once failed? It happens through connection. You have to become connected to what you're learning. And I think that's an opportunity that we as educators have, is connecting our students to their learning. But in order to do that, you have to learn how you learn best. And I learn best by being engaged, by doing what I'm involved in. And so for me, the idea of being connected to finance, I had to go out and be exposed to it. I didn't know anything about this world called trading and finance. I had no clue. But for me, going out and being involved and having this internship, stepping onto this floor for the very first time in 1999, changed everything, because it was an exciting place. People were waving their arms and screaming and shouting. It was like organized chaos. I had no idea what was going on, but I knew it was a place that I wanted to be. During that internship, I had exposure to people that I would have never been able to connect with. I learned things that I would have never learned without that exposure. So for me, I can stand here and say that an internship changed my life. And so for me, connection's about engagement. You have to be connected to what you're learning, and that connection gets you excited. Here's another situation. About 4 to 5 years ago, I get this crazy idea that in addition to doing 5Ks and 10Ks, of going out and doing these running races, I wanted to do a triathlon. Now, I didn't know much about triathlons, so I had to go out and get educated. I got magazines, I got books. And one thing I learned very quickly about triathlons is that you don't get very far if you can't swim. And so I thought I could swim, but I needed to figure out how to go forward. I needed to learn how to be able to do it in a way that was going to be able to get me through the day. So I signed up for an adult swim class, and I had to humble myself a little bit to be taught by somebody half my age to essentially teach me how to swim. Here I am, this adult. I had to put my ego to the side. And through that process, through this idea of being involved in triathlon, I learned a lot about myself. See, triathlon is very mental. There's certainly a physical aspect, and when you tell people about doing a triathlon, they focus on the physical aspect, but the mental part is so much more important because you're constantly training your mind. And so when I signed up and I did my first triathlon, that day was somewhat challenged. Didn't go exactly the way I planned, but I did get it done. You see, one thing that's important about swimming in a pool is that you have these nice black lines that make everything very simple, and you can see the bottom. It's very different than that in the lake. And so I got in the water, I was all excited to go, and I had a panic attack. I had to hold on to a boat, then I had to hold on to a surfboard, and I made this process on and on and on for about almost an hour. I was probably one of the last people to get out of the water, but I got it done. And this is me coming into the finish line. My family was there, I was excited, I was happy. It was a very powerful moment for me. And so, of course, I'm a type A individual, and just doing a triathlon isn't enough. I always want to do more. So I got this crazy idea that, you know what, this half Ironman thing sounds pretty good. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what a half Ironman day sounds like, you get up very early in the morning, and you start your day with a 1.2-mile swim. And of course, once again, I'm an overachiever, and so I decided to do this 1.2-mile swim and such in Boulder, Colorado, where the elevation is above 5,000, a lot less oxygen. And so this 1.2-mile swim transitions into a 56-mile bike ride. And if that 56-mile bike ride isn't enough, the day ends with a 13.1-mile run in the blistering heat with no shade. Why do we do this? I do it because it gets me excited. I can essentially connect to myself, and I like the challenge. And so one thing that was really important when I got through this is that I had to learn the information that I needed to know to be successful. So the year before I signed up, I went out there and I volunteered. And so I'm at the finish line handing people bottles of water, which, mind you, if you ever do a race, it's a very important job. Always thank your volunteers. But in doing that process, I was able to learn what they were going through. I was able to find out what I needed to do to be successful, what was required. And that's really important when you're looking for objectives and goals. And so at the end of the day, I looked a little something like this. Now, certainly it's not exactly a Kodak moment, but I was certainly happy to be done. Again, it was a very powerful moment for me to be able to finish that race. And so now I've set my goals bigger, right, beyond myself. And it's what brings me here today to talk to you all. And that is, I'm asking corporate America to change the way they look at diversity. I'm also asking our young minorities to change how they view corporate America. I believe there's a disconnect. And that disconnect happens because we have roadblocks. If you were to draw a line between corporate America, and specifically corporate recruiters, and young minorities, that disconnect happens because, for one, our young minorities have a limited vision about what's possible. Right? When you see teens killing teens every day, you have a very limited vision of what is accessible to you. Also, too, from the corporate America side, there's a limited vision about what diversity really means. Let's take a look at our youth first. I believe that there's a lack of congruent vision that happens between young minorities and how they see their future selves. I know this firsthand because when I was on the floor of the Chicago Board of Options Exchange, there were very few people who looked like me. Right? Why is that? Why don't we have greater diversity in financial services? In 2014, only 12% of the Chicago area financial services sector employees were African American, 10% Latino. Why is that? Is finance not that interesting? Is it not something that people feel like they can do? I don't think so. I think, like myself, a lot of people have no idea that this business even exists. And more importantly, they don't know how their individual skills can be useful in that world. And that's a real important part of engagement. You have to see how you can connect to the world you want to be a part of. On the other side of this pendulum is corporate America, right? A number of companies will tout their diversity initiatives, but diversity initiatives cannot be a quota. Diversity cannot be a form of corporate charity, right? We're doing our part. That's not enough. Diversity needs to be seen as an opportunity, right? It's an opportunity to have divergent thinking in terms of how we solve problems. It's an opportunity to be connected to different segments of business in a way that you may not have otherwise. That's really important when you think about diversity. But for diversity to work, we have to change what we're doing. And so for corporate America, we can't continue to go and recruit from the same schools that have served us well in the past and not looking for opportunities elsewhere and not exposing other people to opportunities as well. That's really key. And so for me, when I think about diversity, in order to fix the problem, diversity can work in an optimal manner if we change our perspective. And that perspective change happens by doing what I would call final state thinking. And so final state thinking is going to the end of the solution and thinking about what does the world look like at that point? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What does it taste like? What does diversity mean to a corporation? It's an important question that should happen in every corporate boardroom across America. What is the purpose of our diversity initiatives? But it's a dual effort. We can't just blame corporations. It requires a change in divergent thinking for everyone. Right? On the young minority side, what can we do to get people better engaged in thinking about their future? It's really important. And so as I sit up here as an educator, and as we look across this room of educators, mentors, people who are in a position to hire and to affect individuals' futures, you have to ask yourself, what can you personally do? Right? What can you personally do to change this process? Helping people see the end so they can understand how the actions that they're taking today are important. And that's really what final state thinking is about. Final state thinking is about understanding what is happening in the future so that you can weight your actions today correctly so that you are getting closer to your goals. It's really important. So once again, what can we do? I would offer this. I know it worked for me, and I believe it can have an impact on others, is internships. Now, certainly internships happen naturally, but I mean internships with intent. Internships that are education-centric. Internships that are exposure-centric, that are essentially going to get people engaged and open up to people that who wouldn't normally have access to these types of internships. I can tell you these internships are important, and there's a number of reasons why. And one reason specifically is internships provide belief, right? Internships allow an individual to swim in the water, in the pool, before they actually swim in the lake. And that belief is so important because that belief engages everyone around you and it becomes contagious. I learned how to ride a bike a long time ago. But riding a bike down a hill at 40 miles per hour with no guardrail requires incredible, incredible belief. That belief is what we need to give individuals in the future. That's what will change the world we live in. Every day we turn on the news and we see this happening in our city. People are killing people. Why? How can we affect that? Right? So from the perspective of talent is everywhere. Right? Talent is absolutely everywhere. And here in Chicago, we need more of this. We need more internships. We need more access. We need to involve more people because talent is everywhere. Sports recruiters will go out into the most challenged neighborhoods in the city looking for the next basketball player, the next football player. Are corporations doing that? Are they looking for the next fund manager, the next financial analyst? I don't think so. So we are out there, right? We are absolutely out there. The question is, what are we going to do to engage those people? How can we have a part? As I said before, each one of you are connected to this in some way. You're either connected because you know somebody, or you're connected because you could be somebody to inspire someone else. And so I'm asking you today is to be that link. Be the link that has a part. Often when we see big problems on TV, or we see big problems being discussed here on a stage, we feel like, how can I have an effect? I'm just this person. Everyone can have an effect, right? You can mentor one person and have an effect. So I started out today telling you about why I'm here. Let me tell you one more reason. I am here because despite being denied by 15 different doctoral programs, despite having a college GPA of 1.67 at one point in time, I'm here. I'm here because I am a walking testament that our past does not define us. It is our desire for the future that does. Thank you.